In the turbulent years before and after the American Civil War, African Americans fought not only for freedom, but for citizenship, education, and political power. Few individuals embodied that struggle more completely than John Mercer Langston. He was a lawyer when black attorneys were almost unheard of, a politician when black voting rights were under attack, an educator determined to build institutions for future generations, and one of the first African Americans ever elected to public office in the United States. John Mercer Langston's life was a story of relentless perseverance in the face of racism and exclusion. He challenged the barriers of his era and helped lay the groundwork for generations of black leaders who would follow. This is the story of John Mercer Langston, a pioneer of law, education, and political empowerment. Chapter 1. Born into a divided America. John Mercer Langston was born on the 14th of December, 1829, in Louisa County. His origins reflected the contradictions of early America. His father, Ralph Quarles, was a wealthy, white plantation owner. His mother, Lucy Langston, was a formerly enslaved black woman who had been emancipated before John's birth. Although Virginia was a slave state, John and his siblings were born free, but freedom did not mean equality. When John was just 4 years old, both of his parents died, leaving the children orphaned. They were sent to live with relatives in Ohio, a free state where opportunities for black Americans were greater, but racism still remained deeply entrenched. Even as a child, Langston understood that education would be the key to survival and advancement. Chapter 2. The Pursuit of Education. In the 1840s, very few colleges admitted African Americans. Yet John Mercer Langston refused to accept the limitations society placed before him. He attended Oberlin College, one of the few integrated colleges in the United States and a center of abolitionist activism. But Langston's ambitions did not stop there. He wanted to become a lawyer. At the time, many law schools refused to admit black students. Denied formal legal training because of his race, Langston studied law independently under the mentorship of established attorneys. In 1854, he was admitted to the Ohio bar, becoming one of the first black lawyers in the United States. It was a groundbreaking achievement in a nation where African Americans were still denied basic human rights. Chapter 3. Abolitionist and Underground Railroad activist. As tensions over slavery intensified in the years leading up to the Civil War, Langston became a passionate abolitionist. He worked closely with the Underground Railroad, helping enslaved African Americans escape to freedom. His home became a place of refuge. His speeches inspired audiences across the North. Langston believed that slavery was not just immoral, it was incompatible with democracy itself. At conventions and public meetings, he argued fiercely for black citizenship, voting rights, and equal opportunity. He was not merely asking America to end slavery. He was demanding full equality. Chapter 4. Breaking Political Barriers. In 1855, Langston achieved another historic milestone. He was elected town clerk of Brownhelm Township, Ohio, becoming one of the first African Americans elected to public office in the United States. At a time when most black Americans could not even vote, Langston was now serving in government. His political career expanded rapidly. During the Civil War, he helped recruit African American soldiers for the Union Army, believing that military service would strengthen the case for black citizenship. After the war, as the nation entered the Reconstruction era, Langston became one of the leading advocates for black civil rights. He worked with the Freedmen's Bureau, helping newly freed African Americans secure education, employment, and legal protections. Chapter 5. Building Black Education. Langston understood that political freedom without education would never be enough. In 1868, he became the founding dean of the law department at Howard University in Washington. Under his leadership, Howard's law school trained a new generation of black attorneys who would go on to challenge segregation and discrimination across the country. For Langston, education was revolutionary. Every classroom became a battleground against ignorance and inequality. He later served as president of what is now Virginia State University, continuing his lifelong mission of expanding opportunities for African Americans. Chapter 6. A Voice in National Politics. By the 1880s, Reconstruction was collapsing under violent white resistance across the South. Black voting rights were under attack. Segregation laws were expanding, yet Langston continued to push forward. In 1888, he ran for Congress in Virginia as a Republican. The election was marred by fraud, voter intimidation, and violence against black voters. Initially declared the loser, Langston challenged the results. After a lengthy investigation, Congress determined that the election had been stolen through fraud and intimidation. In 1890, John Mercer Langston was officially seated in the United States House of Representatives, becoming the first black congressman from Virginia. It was a remarkable victory, but also a sobering reminder of how fiercely equality was resisted. Chapter 7. The struggle against Jim Crow. Langston's time in Congress was brief. By the late 19th century, the rise of Jim Crow laws and widespread voter suppression had effectively dismantled many of the gains made during Reconstruction. Black political representation nearly disappeared in the South for decades. But Langston refused to surrender to despair. He continued writing, speaking, and advocating for civil rights and education. He believed that progress might be delayed, but it could not be permanently stopped. Chapter 8. A Lasting Legacy. John Mercer Langston died in 1897 inches, Washington. Though his name is not as widely recognized as some later civil rights leaders, his influence was enormous. He helped establish the blueprint for black political participation in America. He proved that African Americans could excel in law, politics, and higher education, even in the face of systemic racism. His legacy also lived on through his family. His great-nephew was the legendary poet and activist Langston Hughes, one of the leading voices of the Harlem Renaissance. Conclusion. Opening the door. John Mercer Langston lived during one of the most dangerous and uncertain periods in American history. Yet he refused to accept the limits imposed upon him. He became a lawyer when black lawyers were almost non-existent, a politician when black voting rights were under siege, an educator determined to prepare future generations for battles yet to come. His life reminds us that progress is rarely given willingly. It must be demanded, built, defended, and carried forward. John Mercer Langston did not simply make history. He opened the door for others to walk through it.